The movie begins with a group of friends helping their friend Haley move to California. On their way there, they spend the night in a motel. While Haley and another friend named Jonah are sleeping, Nick is unable to sleep. He's watching a movie when a message notification pops up on his cell phone. As soon as Nick sees who the message is from, he wakes Jonah up, and they head into the bathroom to avoid waking Haley up. Message was from a hacker called Nomad, who had hacked into MIT servers and blamed it on the three friends, causing them to almost get kicked out. Nomad continues mocking them even as they try to tell him that he almost got them in trouble. When Nomad sends them a picture of them that he had taken by hacking into Haley's laptop, the two of them decide to track Nomad and confront him. They spend the night in the bathtub trying to track Nomad. By the time it's morning, they pinpoint his position in Nevada. Jonah wants to make a stop on their way to California since it's on their way. Later that day, as the friends drive towards California, Jonah receives a new message from Nomad and finds a picture of Haley's car on the highway. The next few hours are spent tense as Jonah tries to pinpoint Nomad's location. Eventually, they stop at a gas station where Nick goes to buy them coffee. Haley takes this opportunity to ask Jonah if Nick has said anything to him about her moving away. However, Jonah does not want to get in the middle of their relationship and tells her that they are both his best friends and he would rather not pick sides. Just then, they notice Nick coming out of the shop carrying a tray of coffees and slipping. They quickly get out of the car to help him. Nick does not say anything and heads back to buy more coffee. Haley follows behind him and tries to help him, but he pushes her away by saying that she will not always be around. Upset, Haley goes out while Nick pays for the coffee. He then hands the coffee to Jonah and follows his girlfriend. She tells him that she knows Nick is trying to prepare himself to break up with her. At first, he tries to deny this, but then confesses that he does not think their relationship will work, since the next few years of his life will be filled with doctor's appointments and eventually life in a wheelchair. After the two of them break up, they spend the rest of the ride in silence. Nick thinks that they should drop Haley off before they go chasing Nomad, but she insists on accompanying them. Later that night, they reach a field where one lone abandoned-looking house is standing. The two boys get out of the car, check inside the house for Nomad, and instruct Haley to stay inside. They scour the house but find nothing but layers of dust inside. They're exploring the basement of the house when they hear Haley scream. The two of them rush outside but find the radio glitching and the doors of the car open, but there's no sign of Haley. Not long after, they hear Haley close by and Nick turns his flashlight towards her screams. To their surprise, they notice a creature carrying Haley as she gets lifted into the air. All of a sudden, things get chaotic and Nick loses consciousness. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself surrounded by men in hazmat suits. Since he is still groggy, Nick is unable to ask any questions as he's lifted and placed in a wheelchair before being wheeled into a conference room. Sitting across from him is another man in a hazmat suit who turns on a recorder and asks Nick to state his name for the record. Nick states his name and then asks the man who he is and where they are. The man introduces himself as Dr. Damon Wallace. He explains that he is heading a transition team that is going to be helping everyone understand what he has been through. At this point, Nick realizes that he cannot feel his legs at all. Dr. Damon then asks Nick when he encountered the signal for the first time, but as expected, Nick does not know what he's talking about. Instead of giving him an answer, Nick asks him where his friends are and why he's here, to which Damon replies that he and his friends had come in contact with an EBE, an extraterrestrial biological entity. When Nick asks him why he's wearing the hazmat suit, he replies that they're not sure what they are dealing with, since they have limited information about what went down that night. Still, Nick has no clue what's going on, and as he starts growing more drowsy, he starts repeating his questions. At this point, Nick's nose starts bleeding, and his mouth starts to go numb as saliva starts dripping. Damon asks Nick to stop talking and calls his men, who take Nick back to the room he had woken up in. The next morning, Nick wakes up feeling slightly more alert as he's wheeled out of his room. He notices men in hazmat suits cleaning a room covered with strange substance. He does not question it, but as they pass another room, Nick finds Haley sleeping on a hospital bed. He tries to ask the men to take him back to Haley, but they refuse to answer him and take him to the conference room again where Damon is waiting for him. He asks Damon why he can't see Haley again, but he is assured that Haley is in good hands, and the faster that he starts talking, the faster he will get answers. To begin, Damon asks Nick a few control questions like, "Do you have 10 toes? And are you from Earth?" Although these questions are strange, Nick does not question them. Damon asks Nick about the signal again, which Nick figures out is Nomad. He reveals that Nomad had hacked into their server at MIT and had been messing with them ever since. Damon then shows Nick a video where he zooms into an alien who was hiding behind the trees while they were searching for Nomad. He explains that Nomad is not a human, but an extraterrestrial entity. Sometime later, Nick finds himself back in his room where he is going crazy, spending so much time alone, until he hears Jonah through the vent in his room. He tells Jonah about seeing Haley and that she had been kept alone ever since he arrived. Jonah confirms that he had been in the same situation as well. He informs Nick that he has heard some of the men talking about keeping the two of them at the lower levels since they are infected. Over the next few days, the two of them start planning a way to escape, until one night, while being escorted somewhere, an alarm starts going off. An automated voice announces that the subject has escaped. Once things calm down in the facility, Nick finds himself across from Damon again, but this time, he is frustrated. He tells Damon that he has been talking to Jonah and knows that they are conducting illegal experiments. Damon reveals that they were never able to recover Jonah and that he does not know who Nick was talking to. Nick does not believe him and starts to play out his plan. He crushes a packet of crackers and uses its crumbs on the keypad to figure out what the passcode is. He then exits the room and ties Haley's bed with his wheelchair before wheeling himself away. However, he is soon caught by Damon and loses consciousness again. The next time he opens his eyes, he finds himself in a bed across from Haley. To his surprise, Haley is also awake, but closes her eyes again and loses consciousness. Nick tries to reach her, but two men take hold of his arm and try to pin him down so that they can hook him up to an IV. He continues to struggle until he falls off the bed. The men leave him on the floor and exit the room. When Nick sits up, he notices that his legs have been amputated and replaced with prosthetics made from alien technology. He starts to freak out and screams at Damon, asking him what they have done. Damon, who was watching Nick through a two-way mirror, tells him that this is why they were interested in him, but could not tell him since he would not have been able to accept the change. Once he explains the situation to Nick, Damon asks him to hook himself to the IV again for everyone's safety. However, Nick is done listening to people who order him around while he remains clueless and stands up using his new prosthetics. This is when he discovers that his legs are much stronger than what he had expected as he kicks open the door of the room he's being kept in. He then drags Haley's bed with him and heads towards the elevator. Damon follows after him and reminds him that he can only be helped if he stays inside the facility, but Nick is beyond reasoning and he leaves the facility. Not long after that, he finds himself in the middle of a field. This is when Haley wakes up, and the two of them start walking away from the facility. After some time, they notice a car headed their way. It turns out to be an old woman named Mirabelle. She drives them to a gas station and Nick goes inside to call for help. Inside, he notices his picture on the news, but gets distracted when he sees a truck driver kidnap Haley and drive away. Using his new legs, Nick runs after the truck, manages to rescue Haley, and steals the truck. On the other hand, Mirabelle is taken into the facility by Damon, who starts questioning her. During this, her nose starts bleeding, and Damon takes out a gun before he kills her. In the meantime, Haley and Nick reach a dead end. With no idea where they are, they decide to go back until they spot a motel that seems to be empty. Nick tries to call for help, but none of the phones are working. All of a sudden, they hear movement nearby and hide in case Damon and his men have found them. To everyone's surprise, they are reunited with Jonah, who tells them that he had escaped as well. Jonah thinks that they might be in Area 51, since everything in the area looks unfamiliar. The three friends once again find themselves on the road as they drive around to find an exit. Soon, they reach a roadblock. Jonah, whose arms had been replaced by alien tech prosthetics, uses his last breaths to fight against the men trying to capture them, and causes an explosion that kills him in the process. Meanwhile, Nick and Haley, who were driving away, are caught by Damon. As their truck crashes, he and Haley share one last look before she's taken away. While on the ground, Nick notices that Damon backwards is Nomad, and that he was the one who had lured them to the facility. He claims that Nick's legs are the perfect example of alien tech combined with human tech. Angry, Nick musters all of his strength and runs towards an invisible wall, breaking it, entering another dimension. At that moment, Damon turns around, and it is revealed that he, along with everyone at the facility, are robots. The movie ends with Nick finding himself in another dimension alone. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed the content, and share in the comments any movies you would like us to recap.